What on guys, Commander, and welcome to a new video on Unreal Engine 4. Now, as you can see from looking at my viewport, I've got a little bit of a different environment with me today. Now, that is because the last environment that we had, which is that little environment, like landscape thing we made using that texture website, essentially, I only was using just to show you how that worked, how height maps work, just for that specific area of a tutorial. But what we're going to be doing today is a bit more level design. And how you sort of can make your levels look a bit better just by adding things into them. Now, what we've got here is a Rishi Moon base, or the Rishi base as it's known. It's a Gmod map. It's not in there. It's in here. Yeah. So essentially, what it is, it's just a Gmod map that I took out of Gary's one and imported into Unreal Engine 4. If you do want to see how you do that, I will be doing a video later on. I've already done one on how to do Unreal Engine 4 maps. No, Gmod models into Unreal Engine, but I want to do a video on how to do maps as well, because maps is a little bit more difficult. It's not, it's less effort to do it, but it's not as easy as models are. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, this, I'm not going to do too much about lighting this scene just yet, because if you with lighting, you can change like your scene to make it like darker or nighttime or whatever. You change the color, intensity, change the color if you so much wish to, but I'm not going to bother about that too much for the moment. I'm just going to keep this all on default, but I want to focus on level design at the moment. Now, what I do want to do is I do want to make a nighttime scene with this scene. Now, that would include like adding point lights on each one of these little lights here, which is why, as you can imagine, I want to do that in a different video, because that's going to take a long time. Now, what I've got here, which you can most probably see, I've got different folders. So we've got the Clone Trooper, which is the one we've been using for the past few videos, as like a little reference model thing with its different like armor coatings and whatnot. We've also got an ATTE, we've got an LAAT, there's nothing in this one, but we've got an LAAT, and a Venator class Star Destroyer in here. Now, they're all Battlefront 2 assets. They're all Battlefront 2 assets, and they're all ones you can get by ripping them out of the Frosty launcher. So they're not anything Gmod related. It's just like Frostbite launcher Battlefront 2 models. So with this LAAT, now you'll probably notice that if I just open the static mesh up, that the model itself, the textures are a bit backwards, just to say the least. You can't really see it from here. You can sort of just see it there. Well, actually, they're not actually too bad. I can't remember whether I paused them back over or not, but if I just import and do this as 100, for example, no, 1000, this map is particularly quite big. It's turned into unlit mode a minute, so the textures are quite, are in the places that they should be. Now, if I open this, now the way I've got this set up is I've got the texture coordinates node in. Now, what that basically does is Battlefront 2 assets tend to have more than one UV channel. And if I, let's say, get rid of this, or let's say just change this to 0, right, as you can see, the textures move around a bit. Now, if I click save, what you'll notice is on the model itself, the textures then start going into random places. Now, the reason why that is because the default UV channel in Unreal Engine is UV 0. Now, with Battlefront 2, they use UV 1 or UV 2. Most of the time, it's UV 2. No, UV1, which is why you change this coordinate index to 1, and then it sorts it out. If it doesn't, so let's say you're using these models yourself, if that doesn't work by changing it to 1, just change it to 2, and that should work. I have got it into the normal map, but I don't particularly need it there, necessarily. It's just I chose to put it there. That's got UV channel 2 in it, so I don't even know. I could stick that into metallic as well, but I'm not going to bother with that too much. So that's that's the LAAT model. So what I'm basically going to do is I'm just going to dot these about. I've got, now the thing is with the level design, you've got to work out scaling. Now, if I import, so that's what I use with referencing is I select a set size. So in this case, it's 1000. So I set the size to 1000. Now, I've only done that because the actual map that I'm using itself is huge. Now, this map is, as you can see, it's on 111, but that's just because Gmod models are generally a lot bigger than Battlefront 2 models. So that's why I had to increase the size a bit. But for anything, if you're making like a level yourself, you won't need to make it that big. You only need to increase the size just a little bit, maybe it's like 100 or like 70 or something. But Never to the point where it gets to 1000 unless you're using a Gmod map. But that's up to your, own particular like thought process. So if you want it to be, if you want like a mini LAT is like, a desk model or something, you can make it, let's say 500, and then make it, or even smaller than that, and just make it like a little mini desk model sort of thing. But I don't want to do that for me, so I'm going to change this to 1000. Now that's 100. Change it to 1000. Now what I do, based on scale, is I set one model up. So this is going to be 1000, and what I then do is I then use that as a reference point for everything else. So most other things, unless you've gone into, so when you're taking Gmod Battlefront 2 assets out, they are quite small generally, because Battlefront 2 like scenes are quite small in comparison with Unreal Engine scenes. So if you directly export them, which is what I've done with the LAT and the default clone, I think, as well, is just leave them as defaults. But if you increase the size, let's say Blender or 3ds Max or something, then it won't quite match up. So I think if I import this clone, yeah, so he's tiny, essentially, but I don't think he's as small as what the default normally is, because if I make this, let's say, let's put this back to 1, see, he's titch in comparison. He's even smaller in comparison with the clone troopers. The clone troopers actually quite big in comparison with the default LAT. So if I just change this back to 1000 and stick this just over into the corner, so what I do is I just sort of make a reference. So if I set this up, so it was quite, so the LAT was quite small in comparison with the default size of the clone trooper. So let's do this up to about 500 and see where that goes. That's way too big, as you can see, sort of towering. So let's change this over to 100 and see where that goes. Still a bit too much. So 50, nope, and 30, nope, 10, no, 5. That's a bit too small. Give it 7. That looks about right. Now, how I then do it is I then stick the... Now, the LAT is a little bit easier to do this with, because you can actually stick the clone trooper inside it. If you know Star Wars, you know what the reference, like how big a clone trooper needs to be when he's inside an LAT. So, as you can see, when he's standing in there, his head's about to like phase into the side of the LAT's hull. So if I just make this a little bit smaller, now that looks just about right, I reckon. Let's turn to face me. That looks, I could probably put that to about 5.5 or 6. See, that looks about perfect. I'm actually going to change that to 5.4 just to make it just that bit right. So now that I've got that reference with the LAT, anything that's got the clone trooper size on it will be 5.4 to be in scale with the LAT, or anything that's of the LAT's default size will be at a size of 1000. So if I then go and import, we've got a ATTE here. I'm going to import him. Don't want to open him up, but I'm really just going to open him up anyway. So if I then go and drag and drop him in, obviously as you can see, tiny, but it's the same size as the LAT. So if I go and make him 1000, again, he's about the right size. Now, if I go and match that up with the LAT, he looks just about right. Now, so what I then can do is I can say, okay, well, that's okay then. So I'll move him to where I want him. So I think I'm going to stick him just about there. Right? So that's just quite good right there. Right? So now, if you're building, let's say you want multiple of these different things in this scene, so let's say you want like, LAT, ATT, LAT, ATT on the different landing pads, instead of just continuously dragging and dropping them into your scene and then increasing the size, what you can do is if you, so you see you got the WX and Y axis here. If you hold one of them, it doesn't matter which one, but I normally do it in the direction of which I want the actual model to move. So if I'm making the model making another one on top, I'll use the up one. If I use the Z axis, if I wanted to go left or right, I'll use the Y axis. And if I want it to go backwards or forwards, I'll use the X axis. But what you basically do is if you press Alt and then you press and then drag the axis in which you want to move it to, it'll actually make a complete duplicate in exactly the same size, exactly the same variables as this one. Now that does come a bit of a nuisance when you actually, now this is the reason why you need to make sure that it's perfect with this one. So this one, the first one that you've done is as you want it, because if let's say you start making And it's the same with the lights. So let's say lights, for example. You can see how many of these lights that we've got here. Well, there must be about 30 different lamp posts or more. Now, if you put all the spotlights onto the lamp posts, and then you suddenly realize, okay, that looks a little bit bright, you're then going to have to go through every single point light, you know, whether it be in the world outline or on the actual icons themselves, and just manually change each one of them, because they're all going to be in different values. So you need to make sure that what you've got is what you think it should be, because otherwise it's just going to cause you such a heartache and a headache trying to get it sorted. You know, I've done it before, trying to make you know, there's me trying to make my scenes, and I've just lit an entire scene, and I think, okay, that looks a little bit too bright or a little bit too dark, and then I've got like 50 different point lights in my scene, and then spotlights as well included in that. And I've got to go change all of them like one after the other, and it's just such a ball ache. So make sure you have, you know, with models it's not too bad because it's really just the sizing of them. But make sure you get your details sorted first before you start duplicating things around, because otherwise you're just going to cause yourself more trouble. So what I want to do is I want to actually move the ATT over here. Now, he's a little bit too high because I don't think that this map is straight. I think it tilts a little bit, which isn't an issue. So what I just need to do then is just move him downwards just so he's touching like that. He's a little bit, so I think the model is actually, the map is actually tilted ever so slightly. So I'll make this like level, and then these feet will sort of float a little bit, which isn't a massive issue. Again, if I was doing this for like making a proper scene, then I would absolutely make sure, you know, I would tilt the world. You know, what I would then do if this was me doing it for like a proper like cinematic that I was making, what I'd do is I'd then go just zoom out a bit, change this. I'd have the axis lock on, or if you didn't want it on, then you can turn it off if you so much wish to. But I think I'd turn the lock axis on, because otherwise if you slip, you're then going to have to sort of try and relocate it again. So if it, depending on how big it is, you can go up to 120 degrees if you want to, but because it's only a little tiny thing, I'll go up to 5. Oh, and you've even got your subdivisions here if you want, like 2.812 degrees if you want to, but these are just the common values. I'm not sure if you can actually put your own one in, no. But anyway, so what I would then do is see, so it's tilting downwards, down towards the left. So what I then do is I tilt it up towards the right a bit, and even that's way too much. So in that case, I would then use one of these little sub values and then just tilt it ever so slightly. Even that's too much. So just play about with it, you know, and see. And again, if I was then doing this on my own and I realized that was too much, what I'd then do is I'd then turn the lock axis off and then just do it myself ever so slightly, but do it just tiny bits. But again, I'm not too bothered about it personally, so I'm not going to bother with it because I'm only using this for a tutorial basis. So then what I'd do is then let's say make this, actually what I'll do is I'll move him that there. Actually no, I'll move him to that there, because then I'm going to have the LAAT like this, then I'm going to have him facing that way. So you've got to have a bit of variety, because otherwise things look a bit too similar. You know, if I have, you know, I've got this guy, this LAAT facing that way. This one's pointing straight on, because otherwise if I had this guy pointing this way, he'd be too similar to this one, and then this one, if I had him moving to that one, it'd look a bit too similar. So if I have him moving looking that way, then have him looking straight, then it looks a bit more, there's a bit more variety, because otherwise it looks too robotic. You know, you have things looking too similar, they look a bit too robotic. You know, if let's say you've got, let's say you walk down the street. Now, this is how I can best describe it. If you walk down the street and you see a row of parked cars just along the pavement, right, on the road but against the pavement, if they were all identically in the same position as each other, so they were parked, so nose to tail, but they were parallel with each other. So not parallel, but they were straight as each other. So you could literally run a ruler up against all the way and you wouldn't hit a dead end. You wouldn't get stopped. They would all be exactly the same. That would look unnatural, because all cars nobody parks exactly the same. So all cars are parked with maybe a little bit outwards towards the road, maybe a little bit more inwards to the curb, you know. So so that doesn't look, if it's like exactly identical, it looks very unnatural. So that's what I'm sort of trying to replicate here. You know, if they're all, let's say, facing one way, let's say all facing frontwards, it would look a little bit unnatural. And even if you see things in Star Wars, you know, you see gunships in a hangar bay, you can see they're all slightly different positions from each other. They're not very even, and so it looks a little bit more naturalistic. So what I would then do is I get this guy out of here, and what I could do is I could have like a clone trooper here, have one here. Now next episode we will, I think, if I've got, I'm not sure if we're gonna have time today, but one day I'll do lighting next episode, and then the episode after I'm gonna do posing, because what you can actually do is that I'll show you just briefly. I won't do it properly, but just for the sake of I can show you can actually do. If you let's say, oh god, we got the left shoulder. No, I don't want the left shoulder. I want the right shoulder. Let's move down a minute. Actually, just search right. Yeah, right arm. Right, so you got right arm here. So let's just go like this. Make him do like a little salute, let's say. So arm roll. No, I don't want that. Right forearm. This time go like this. Then where's his hand? Move this down here a little bit like this. This is sort of basic animation, but like sort of static animation. Then go like that. I'm not gonna move his fingers. That's too much effort. So do that. You'll most probably actually see it the way I did my thumbnails. In my first few videos where I've got like the fingers pointing like a salute with the clone trooper. This is how I did it. So essentially what you do is you sort of go like, let's say that, move the left arm downwards. It's very, very rough. Like if I was doing this properly, I'll make sure it's done more properly. Right, so what you do then, you drag and drop him in. So you got your reference size with this clone trooper's 5.4. So you go back to him, and go 5.4 and exactly the same size. And what you do, just, you know, turn him around, add a pose, add him into the position you want. If I can actually, my interface will work properly. And then just, you know, add duplicates to wherever you want. Just like that. It's as simple as that. It's quite easy, you know. And then maybe you can add a weapon if you want. So let's say you want him in like an armed position. You can do that. But, you know, it's quite simple like that. So you can add like sort of armed guards if you want to. You can do that just without having to animate anything. You know, if let's say you just want like a visual picture, then you can sort of add weapons to him and just make sort of static poses and stuff like that. And, you know, you can add some like armed guards and doors and stuff like that. So it's quite good how that works. You know, Unreal Engine doesn't have like an animation sequence by default. There are plugins you can get which allow you to do animation, but for basic purposes, if you just want to make like your picture scenes, and this is sort of how you would do it. So, you know, we are going to go through a bit of an animation later on. I'm not going to go through handmade animation like with keyframes individually because I can't do that to save my life. But what I have got is I have got a mocap solution that connects to my VR. However, it's not in the stage yet where I can use it properly with Battlefront 2 assets and stuff like that. But it is coming. So when that does come, I will push this, which is why I'm sort of delaying in doing this. I don't want to get so ahead with this game. So not with this game, but with this scene and with this tutorial series that I have to then just only stop because I can't actually do my mocap properly. But anyway, so that's sort of like scene building in a sense. You know, I know we haven't done an awful lot. Or actually, what I do want to do, just to add a bit of scale to this scene. If I get my Venator, I want to add the Venator in here, just to add a bit of scale to the scene. So again, this Venator, as you can see, he's flipping tiny, but he's like tiny. If I move over to him, like he is tiny. So what I can, so obviously scale, same scale as the ATTs and the LAATs. Scale 1000 is huge. Cool, look at that. Oh dear, that is quite big. I'm surprised I didn't crash my scene. Oh my god, that is huge. But then that is the actual like size and scale of a Venator. Like that is gigantic. I think that might actually be too big. I was actually expecting that to be smaller than that. I don't know why. But what I can do is I can just move him. In fairness, like looking at it like this, that actually looks like a correct scale. But it's the only reason why I'm slightly shocked by that is because like I've been using the Venator in some of my own projects. But the only thing with that is that I've been using it in space scenes, so that one, the map isn't as big as this, in the space scenes, and two, I can leave this as a default size, so not actually see the scale in comparison with Battlefront 2 assets, in like the Clone Trooper, for example. So that was a bit of a shock to me. But what I can do, I can just go like this, and if we go back into lit mode, you can sort of see him, just sort of see it like hovering over the base. Now it is a bit of a nuisance because it's sort of dark in this area, which is why I didn't really want him there too much, like overshadowing the base. Because like if I move him to over here, he's going to end up shadowing the entire area, which I don't want to happen. So I'm moving a bit more away from the base, so he's just going to sit there. Now if I go and then build my lighting, actually what I want to do, I'll just do basic lighting just to show you what the scene's going to look like. So where's my light source? Let's turn that up to, let's say 20. I need it quite big because when I go and build the lighting, it will sort of dull the light down a little bit as well. And then, so I want to turn off the fog. Actually, what's that? No, that's gonna make the vent look awful. So turn the fog on. It makes the vent look a little bit nicer. So let's build my lighting. Now this might take a little bit longer, so I'll be because of the size of the actual scene. So what I'll do, I'll get this done. I'll be back in a second. Alright guys, so I'm back now. I've been doing a little bit of like tweaking with this scene. So as you can see, I sort of built the lighting, right? Now it looks a little bit different, but that's for a number of different reasons. Obviously, one, I've baked the lighting, which obviously is going to make the scene look a little bit better as well. And you can see up there the start of the Venator Destroyer looks a little bit more nicely lit as well. Now I do have the atmospheric fog here. You can turn it off if you want, but I think it looks a bit nicer because it gives the scene a little bit more like light. But you can choose that if you want. If you go into the atmospheric fog, you can change its default lighting color to make, you know, whatever color you want. But I'm just going to leave it just as it is by default, just because I like it like that. So anyway, what I've done is, instead of, as well as baking the light in, what I've done is, in my skylight, I've added a SNS specified cube map. Now what this essentially does is it affects the light a bit more in the shadows. So if I just turn this off a minute, as you can see, the light, especially with the Venator itself, if I just change this, to captured scene, it changes, the shadows are very dark, you know, and it probably doesn't help the fact that if I turn my atmospheric fog off, you can see that the shadows are very dark, and it changes the color lower. That is mainly just because my, you know, thingy is a different color, it's not quite white, but the shadows are very dark, especially under here. And if we go like the start destroyer, you can't see anything from underneath it at all. You know, and under the ATC, it's very like black shadows. Now, what you do is if you go into your skylight, and if you change, so find the light bit and try and change source type from SLS captured scene to SLS specified cube map, and what it will be is it will change this back to none. Right now, when that changes back to none, you can see it a bit better now. All the shadows have gone really black. And you know, you can't see anything underneath, any of the detail on anything. You know, it's all just like black shadow. But what you do, you set it to specify cube map, and you'll get this. Now, what you do is you click to search for one. Now, there's a number of different ones here. You can make your own ones if you want to bring it in. But I'm not going to do that, so I don't actually know how to do. I always use the ones that Unreal Engine provides me because they're mostly okay. But if you use the ones that Unreal Engine find, if you want to be really accurate about it, find one that sort of matches the lighting of your scene. So we're going to do a bit more of a dark night scene here. So you will most probably want like more of like a darker grey sort of texture, like an ambient sunset. But just to show you what I can do with this as like a daylight scene, if I choose the grey light texture, automatically that will. You can see that there's more detail under the shadows. You can see there's a bit more detail under the shadows of the Venator. Not so much, it's still a bit dark. But what you can do, now automatically, this will be set to 1, right? Now, as you can see, right, so this is what will be set with default. The intensity will be default set to 1. Now, as you can see, that's way too light. It's very, very, very washed out. But what you can do is if it is still a bit dark, you can turn it up, and then it gets really, like, it really washed out, really white. What you can do is you can just change it to, let's say, 0.1, and that decreases the value a little bit. But I think that's a little bit light. I think that's a little bit too washed out. So I'm going to go 0.08, still a little bit too much, and then 0.07, and I think that's just about right. So you can see the detail underneath the Star Destroyer, and you can also see the detail underneath the vehicles as well. And if it is still a little bit too bright, too dark, like let's see under the Star Destroyer it's a little bit too dark, what you can do is you can go back to your light source and change it back to what it was before, and then it sort of light the scene up a little bit. That's still a little bit too dark, so I'm going to do that at 3.5 and leave it at that, right? So that's essentially what you do as far as lighting. I am going to go into a bit more detail with lighting next episode, because I do want to make like a nighttime scene. But if you want to make a daytime scene and you find that your shadows are a little bit too black, like on the Star Destroyer, it still looks a bit naff. But especially under here, you know, the shadows were black before, but now it's still shadowed, but you can see the detail underneath it. You know, under here you can still see the detail, but it's not so like, it looks a lot more realistic now. It's not so like fake shadow as it was before. Because what you got to think with Unreal Engine and any game making engine that you're using, whether it be Unity, Unreal Engine, Game Maker, what have you, if you want to make a realistic game yourself, what you've got to think is, how would this look in real life? You know, if I took away that cube map and just left it, you will never get a shadow unless there's absolutely no light whatsoever and you're only holding a torch. All shadows have got some form of light to them. Like if you go outside in the dark or even in the light, right, but you've got something blocking the light. So let's say you hold your hand up to a wall in front of the sun, right? You're still going to see the detail from behind that, from in that shadow. So let's say so you got a brick wall, there's sun's behind you, and you hold your hand up to make a shadow on the wall, right? So obviously you're blocking the sun's rays from that shadow. You're not going to stop seeing any of the detail from the wall, because the detail's still there. You just can't see the color because the color's been blocked out by the sun, by the shadow of the sun. So you've sort of got to think, you know, if you're going to make a scene as realistic as possible, you've got a lot of what you've got to do is you've got to think, oh, how is this going to look in real life, and how is this going to look when I render it out? Is this going to look, you know, realistic? You know, like that. This, you know, the Star Destroyer looks a little bit better. You can sort of see the details, you know, in the center bit, but it's not as good as it could be. But again, that is just a case of just trial and error, tweaking things. But and that's all it really is trial and error. You know, try different things. You know, just two different like world settings. You know, two different maps can have such drastically different lighting. Because of the way, you know, just doing a night and day scene, as you can imagine, has so many different lighting settings you could do. You've just got to make it work right. So anyway, that is about what we have time for in this video here, though. What I'm going to do next episode is I'm going to show you a bit more detailed lighting. So I'm going to make this scene like a nighttime scene, and then I'm going to set like these torches, these little like lampposts up with different lights, and show you how to do that. So that'll be next episode. The episode after that, hopefully, is going to be something along the lines of cinematics and like setting up sequence and things like that. I don't know. I'm just thinking of them as they come, trying to make a bit of sense out of what I'm doing. So anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy, don't forget to smash that like button and hit the subscribe button for more awesome gaming content. And if you do have any suggestions for any other tutorials that I can do inside of Unreal Engine 4, disregard this little mini series that I'm doing, or anything inside this little mini series that I'm doing, do leave it in the comment section down below, and I'll get to that in the video as quickly as I possibly can, or include it in a video. So I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I shall see you all later. Bye!